Daniel Foster stood on stage accepting the Industry Innovator of the Year award with trembling hands and a grateful heart, believing his wife Lauren was cheering from the audience. But what he didn't know was that she was about to divorce him in front of 300 colleagues to marry his best friend Ethan Blake, who stood beside her with divorce papers already signed. Daniel, a brilliant software architect who'd spent 15 years building tech solutions while his marriage quietly crumbled, watched in stunned horror as Lauren walked to the microphone during his acceptance speech and announced she was leaving him for Ethan, the charismatic sales director who'd been his closest friend since college. Completely unaware that Daniel had just inherited $500 million and the entire tech conglomerate that owned the company she worked for from his mentor who died 2 weeks ago. Lauren and Ethan celebrated their victory that night, planning their future with her salary and his commissions, neither knowing that the man they publicly humiliated now controlled every aspect of their professional lives. What happens when a man who achieves his dreams gets betrayed at his highest moment, only to discover he holds the power to destroy everything his betrayers built? What did Daniel do when he inherited $500 million in the company she worked for that would shock them so completely they'd never recover? And why would a betrayal so public, a divorce so calculated, and a best friend's ultimate deception lead to consequences so devastating it would become legendary in their industry? Daniel Foster had always believed in moments, singular points in time where everything changed. He'd experienced a few. The day he wrote his first line of code at 12, the day he met Lauren in college, the day his mentor, Robert Chen, offered him a job at Chen Technologies. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. The grand ballroom of the Marriott Marquis glittered with the tech industry's elite. 300 people in formal wear, representing every major company in the sector. The Technology Innovation Council's annual awards ceremony was the Oscar night of their world, and Daniel had won Industry Innovator of the Year for his work on adaptive AI systems that were revolutionizing healthcare diagnostics. He stood at the podium, trophy in hand, heart hammering. His acceptance speech notes trembled slightly. He'd practiced this a dozen times in his apartment, always imagining Lauren's proud smile from the audience. 15 years of marriage. 15 years of her supporting his crazy ideas, his late nights, his obsessive focus on solving impossible problems. "I want to thank my wife, Lauren," he began, his voice catching slightly. "She's been my rock through every failed prototype, every rejected patent, every moment I doubted myself. Actually, Daniel, I need to say something." The voice cut through the ballroom like a blade. Lauren's voice. Daniel's eyes found her in the crowd, standing now, moving toward the stage. She wore the red dress he'd bought her for their anniversary last month. Her expression was calm, almost serene. Behind her, Ethan Blake rose too, his hand touching the small of her back. Daniel's brain stuttered. Ethan, his best friend, the guy who'd been his roommate senior year of college, the guy who'd been best man at his wedding, the guy who worked in sales at DataStream Solutions, one of the mid-tier companies where Lauren had been a project manager for 3 years. "Lauren!" Daniel's voice sounded distant to his own ears. "What are you—" She climbed the stage steps. Someone handed her a microphone. The ballroom had gone silent, 300 people leaning forward in collective confusion and anticipation. This wasn't part of the program. "I'm sorry to do this here," Lauren said, her voice steady and clear, "but I think honesty matters. Daniel, I want a divorce. Ethan and I are in love. We have been for over a year. I'm moving out tonight. The papers are already filed." The words hit like physical blows. Daniel's knees went weak. The trophy slipped slightly in his grip. He stared at Lauren, at her calm face, at the lack of guilt or sorrow in her eyes. Behind her, Ethan had moved closer to the stage, his expression a careful mask of sympathy that didn't reach his eyes. "You're what?" Daniel managed. "I'm choosing happiness," Lauren said simply. "You're married to your work, Daniel. You always have been. Ethan actually sees me. He prioritizes me. I deserve that." Somewhere in the stunned silence, a phone camera flashed. Then another. Daniel realized with creeping horror that this was being recorded. His humiliation was being captured for posterity, for social media, for industry gossip that would follow him forever. Lauren, can we talk about this privately? His voice cracked on the last word. There's nothing to talk about. It's done. She handed him an envelope. Divorce papers? Your copy. My lawyer will be in touch about dividing assets. I'm entitled to half of everything you've earned during our marriage. She turned and walked off the stage. Ethan met her at the bottom of the steps, putting his arm around her shoulders. They walked out together, leaving a wake of whispers and shocked faces. Daniel stood frozen at the podium. The moderator approached hesitantly. Daniel, I'm so sorry. Do you want to? I need to go. Daniel set the trophy down carefully on the podium and walked off stage. His legs moved automatically, carrying him through the ballroom, past the staring faces and the phone cameras and the barely suppressed gossip. He made it to the hotel lobby before his hands started shaking uncontrollably. His phone buzzed. A text from his lawyer, Patricia Morrison. I'm so sorry, don't sign anything. Call me tomorrow. Another buzz from his coworker, Mike Santos. Holy shit, man, you okay? That was brutal. Another from an unknown number. Guess she finally figured out you're not going anywhere. Should have seen it coming. Anonymous. Daniel silenced his phone and walked out into the November night. Cold air hit his face, sharp and clarifying. He started walking with no destination, just movement, just trying to process what had happened. Lauren wanted a divorce. She was in love with Ethan. They'd been having an affair for over a year. While Daniel worked late solving problems and chasing innovations, his wife had been building a life with his best friend. And they'd announced it publicly at his moment of professional triumph, turning his achievement into a spectacle of personal failure. He walked for 2 hours before finding himself at a small park near the Hudson River. He sat on a bench, staring at the dark water, trying to understand how he'd missed the signs. Had there been signs? Lauren's increasing distance, her complaints about his work hours, her sudden interest in going to DataStream's social events where Ethan would be. God. How had he been so blind? His phone rang. Not a text this time. A call from Patricia Morrison, his lawyer. Patricia, I can't talk right now. Daniel, I need you to come to my office tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. It's urgent. It's about Robert Chen's estate. Daniel's chest tightened. Robert, his mentor, the man who'd given him his first real job, who'd taught him everything about the industry, who'd become more of a father than his own distant dad. Robert had died 2 weeks ago from a sudden heart attack at 63. Daniel had been devastated, barely functioning. The funeral had been small, private. Daniel had delivered the eulogy with tears streaming down his face while Lauren sat in the back row checking her phone. What about the estate? Daniel asked. I can't discuss it over the phone. But Daniel, you need to come alone. Don't tell anyone about this meeting. Anyone. Do you understand? The intensity in her voice cut through his fog. Okay, 9 a.m. I'll be there. Good. And Daniel, about tonight, don't do anything rash. Don't sign anything Lauren gives you. Don't make any statements to anyone. Just come see me tomorrow. She hung up. Daniel sat in the darkness, replaying the night. The award, the public humiliation, Lauren's calm face, Ethan's careful sympathy, the flashing cameras, the whispers, and now this cryptic call about Robert's estate. He went back to his apartment, the one he'd shared with Lauren until tonight. Her closet was empty, her bathroom products gone. She'd moved fast, must have packed earlier today while he was at work. She'd planned this, timed it for maximum impact. Daniel slept on the couch, unable to face their bed. He dreamed of the ballroom, of Lauren's voice announcing the divorce over and over, of Ethan's hand on her back, of 300 faces watching his world collapse. Patricia Morrison's office occupied the 40th floor of a downtown skyscraper with views of the entire city. Daniel arrived at 8:55 a.m., exhausted and hollow. He'd seen the videos online. Someone had posted the ballroom footage. It was going viral in tech industry circles. Most brutal public divorce ever. Wife leaves tech innovator during award speech. The comments ranged from sympathy to mockery to speculation about what he'd done to drive her away. Patricia was a sharp woman in her 50s, steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She'd handled Robert Chen's legal affairs for 20 years. She gestured Daniel into her office and closed the door firmly. "First, how are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm not," Daniel said honestly. "I don't understand what happened. I don't understand how I missed it. I don't—" His voice broke. Patricia handed him tissues. "Lauren's a fool. What she did was cruel and calculated, but we're not here to discuss her. We're here to discuss your future." She opened a thick folder on her desk. Robert Chen died 2 weeks ago. His will was very specific about when and how certain information would be revealed. He wanted you to have time to grieve before learning about your inheritance. But given last night's events, I think we need to accelerate the timeline. Inheritance? Robert was generous, but I never expected— Daniel. Patricia's voice was firm. Robert Chen was worth $537 million. He owned Chen Technologies outright. No partners, no shareholders. The company is privately held and valued at approximately $400 million. He also had personal investments, real estate, and liquid assets totaling another $137 million. Daniel stared at her. The numbers made no sense. Robert lived modestly. He drove a 10-year-old Volvo. He lived modestly because he believed wealth should be earned and used responsibly, not displayed. He built Chen Technologies from nothing over 30 years. He acquired smaller companies, invested brilliantly, and never went public because he didn't want to answer to shareholders who cared only about quarterly profits. Patricia slid a document across the desk. "Daniel, Robert left everything to you. The company, the investments, the real estate, all of it. You are now the sole owner of Chen Technologies and heir to his entire estate." The room tilted. Daniel gripped the desk edge. "That's not possible. He has family. He has a sister who's a multi-millionaire surgeon in Boston and told him years ago she didn't need his money. He has no children. He never married. You were the closest thing he had to a son. He told me once that you were the only person who understood his vision for what technology could do for humanity rather than just for profit." Patricia opened another file. "There's more. Chen Technologies owns controlling interest in 17 other companies, mid-sized tech firms that Robert acquired over the years. Do you know DataStream Solutions?" Daniel's blood went cold. "That's where Lauren works, and Ethan." "Worked. Past tense. Chen Technologies owns 63% of DataStream. As of this morning, you own 63% of DataStream. You are effectively Lauren and Ethan's boss, several times removed, but functionally in control of the company's direction and major personnel decisions." Daniel couldn't breathe. The irony was so sharp it cut. Lauren had divorced him publicly, claiming he was going nowhere, that Ethan offered her more stability and success. And now Daniel owned the company that employed them both. "Why didn't Robert tell me?" Daniel whispered. Patricia's expression softened. "He wanted to, but he was superstitious about it. He said if he told you, it might change how you worked, how you created. He wanted you to build your innovations because you love solving problems, not because you knew you'd inherit an empire. He planned to tell you on your 40th birthday. He died 6 months before that." She slid another document over. "This is a letter he wrote you. He updated it every year. This version is from 3 months ago." Daniel's hands shook as he opened the envelope. Robert's precise handwriting covered 3 pages. "Daniel, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you this in person, but I hope you understand why I waited. You have something rare, genuine brilliance combined with genuine compassion. You create technology to help people, not to extract profit from them. That's increasingly rare in our industry. I built Chen Technologies with the same philosophy. Every company we've acquired, every investment we've made, has been guided by one question. Does this make the world better? Not richer, better. I need someone to continue that mission after I'm gone. That someone is you. You're inheriting money, yes. 500 million sounds like an impossible amount, but money isn't the point. The point is what you do with it. You're inheriting responsibility. The responsibility to keep building things that matter. To keep our companies focused on purpose over profit, to be a different kind of wealthy person than the extractive vultures who dominate this industry. I know you, Daniel. I know you'll be overwhelmed. You'll wonder if you deserve this. You'll worry about changing, about becoming someone different. Don't. You earn this through every late night you spent solving problems others ignored, through every time you chose the right solution over the profitable one, through every moment you stayed true to your principles. Use this wealth well. Build something meaningful. Help people the way you've always helped people. And remember, the money doesn't change who you are. It just amplifies it. Stay the person I'm proud to call my son in all but blood. All my love and faith. Robert Daniel read it 3 times, tears streaming down his face. Robert had seen him, really seen him, not as an employee or protege, but as family, as someone who mattered beyond professional productivity. There's a trust structure in place, Patricia explained gently. The company ownership transfers immediately. You'll need to meet with the board, learn the operations. But Robert left detailed instructions for transition. He's been preparing for this for years. What about Lauren? Daniel's voice was rough. The divorce. She said she's entitled to half of everything I earned during our marriage. Patricia's smile was sharp. She filed for divorce yesterday morning, before Robert's will was executed. This inheritance is entirely separate from your marital assets. She has no claim to it whatsoever. What she's entitled to is half of your salary and savings from your marriage. That amounts to approximately $200,000, not the fortune she probably imagined. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest. Not quite satisfaction, not quite relief, just a strange, dizzy awareness of how completely everything had changed in 12 hours. What do I do now? He asked. Patricia leaned back in her chair. That depends. You could announce this immediately. Let everyone know you're now a major tech industry player. Make Lauren and Ethan aware they work for you. Or, she paused meaningfully, you could wait. Watch what they do. See how they behave when they think you're just a humiliated, discarded husband with no power. Daniel thought about Lauren's calm face announcing the divorce, Ethan's sympathetic expression, the calculated cruelty of the timing. I want to wait, he said quietly. I want to see who they really are. Patricia nodded. Robert would approve. He always said the best way to understand someone's character is to observe them when they think they're winning. Daniel spent the next week in a strange fugue state. Publicly, he was the humiliated tech innovator whose wife had left him at his award ceremony. The story had spread beyond industry circles into mainstream media. Think pieces about work-life balance, debates about public divorces, his name trending on social media. Privately, he was learning to navigate an entirely different reality. Patricia introduced him to Chen Technologies board, 7 people who'd worked with Robert for decades. They welcomed Daniel with warmth and respect, sharing stories about Robert's vision and explaining the company's structure. Chen Technologies was unlike any tech company Daniel had encountered. It didn't chase growth for growth's sake. It invested in sustainable innovation. It paid employees well above industry standard. It had a strict ethics policy about data privacy and user protection that Robert had enforced religiously. Your mentor was a rare man, said Margaret Brennan, the CFO who'd been with Robert for 23 years. He could have taken us public 10 years ago and made billions. He refused, said public companies serve shareholders, not principals. He kept us private so we could stay true to our mission. Daniel also learned about the 17 companies Chen Technologies controlled. DataStream Solutions was the newest acquisition, purchased just 8 months ago when the original founders wanted to cash out. Robert had seen potential in their project management software and bought 63% ownership, giving him effective control while letting the existing leadership run day-to-day operations. Did Robert know about Lauren working there? Daniel asked Patricia during one of their many meetings. He knew. He mentioned once that your wife worked for one of our subsidiary companies. I don't think he thought much of it. Why? I'm wondering if he knew about the affair. Patricia's expression sharpened. When did it start? Lauren said over a year ago. The acquisition happened 8 months ago. They looked at each other. Robert had bought controlling interest in DataStream after Lauren and Ethan had begun their affair. It could be coincidence, or Robert might have known something, might have been positioning pieces on a board Daniel didn't yet understand. Daniel threw himself into learning the business. He met with department heads, reviewed financial statements, studied Robert's investment philosophy. The work was overwhelming but also grounding. It gave him purpose beyond the hollow ache of betrayal. His phone continued buzzing with messages, from colleagues expressing sympathy, from industry contacts awkwardly checking in, from strangers offering advice or criticism. He ignored most of them. Lauren's lawyer sent formal divorce paperwork. Patricia handled it, responding with careful legal precision. Lauren wanted half of Daniel's marital assets, plus spousal support. Patricia's counteroffer was brutally simple. Half of the actual marital assets, the savings account, the value of their modest apartment, Daniel's old car, total value approximately $200,000 to be split evenly. No spousal support since Lauren was employed and had left voluntarily. Lauren's lawyer responded with outrage. This wasn't what they'd expected. They clearly thought Daniel had more hidden assets, or that the award ceremony indicated greater wealth. Patricia stonewalled them with documentation proving Daniel's modest salary and limited savings. Ethan reached out directly, a text that made Daniel's stomach turn. "Hey man, I know this is weird, but I wanted to explain. Lauren and I didn't mean for it to happen. We just connected. You were always working, and she felt lonely. I hope we can still be friends eventually. You're important to me." Daniel stared at the message for a long time. The audacity was breathtaking. Ethan wanted absolution. He wanted Daniel to understand, to forgive, to eventually accept this betrayal as somehow inevitable or justified. Daniel didn't respond. 3 days later, another message. "I get that you're angry, but we're going to be around each other at industry events. Lauren and I are getting married next month. It would mean a lot if you could be mature about this. We both care about you." Daniel blocked the number. 2 weeks after the award ceremony, Daniel attended his first official board meeting as owner of Chen Technologies. The conference room was elegant but understated, filled with people who'd built their careers on Robert's vision. They treated Daniel with respect that felt both overwhelming and earned. "We're glad you're here," Margaret Brennan said. "Robert talked about you constantly. He believed you understood what we're trying to build. Technology that serves humanity, not extracts from it." They discussed quarterly reports, upcoming projects, ethical concerns about data usage. Daniel listened and learned, occasionally offering insights from his engineering background. These people were brilliant and principled. They'd stayed with Chen Technologies despite offers from bigger, flashier companies because they believed in the mission. At the end, Margaret mentioned DataStream. "We need to make a decision about their leadership. The CEO, Frank Morrison, is retiring. He's been interim since the acquisition. We need someone permanent who understands our values." "What about their current project management?" Daniel asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Mixed results. They have good people, but some concerning cultural issues. There's been talk of romantic relationships between employees, creating favoritism in assignments. HR is documenting some complaints." Daniel's pulse quickened. "What kind of complaints?" Margaret consulted her notes. "A senior project manager named Lauren Foster, apparently recently divorced, has been showing preferential treatment to a sales director named Ethan Blake. Several team members have reported that projects Blake is involved with get priority resources regardless of merit. There's also concern about their relationship affecting workplace professionalism." She looked up. "Robert always said personal relationships in the workplace are fine as long as they don't compromise fairness or ethics. But this situation seems to be crossing lines. We may need to intervene." Daniel kept his expression neutral. "What does their current leadership say?" "Frank Morrison is checked out mentally. He's counting days until retirement. He hasn't addressed it. That's why we need new leadership there. Someone who will enforce our ethical standards." "I'll review the situation," Daniel said. "Give me a week." After the meeting, Patricia caught him. "You're not going to do anything rash, are you?" "Define rash." "Daniel," her voice was firm, "I know what they did to you, but Robert left you this company because he trusted your judgment and your character. Don't let anger compromise either." "I'm not angry," Daniel said, and realized it was true. The fury had burned itself out over the past 2 weeks. What remained was clarity. I'm just going to ensure our companies maintain ethical standards. That's my responsibility as owner, right? Patricia studied him. Just remember, the best revenge is building something they could never achieve. Daniel smiled slightly. That's not revenge. That's just success. He spent the next week immersed in DataStream's operations. He reviewed reports, read HR complaints, studied performance metrics. The picture that emerged was troubling but not surprising. Lauren Foster had been a competent project manager before the acquisition. After Chen Technologies took control, her performance became erratic. She assigned herself to high-profile projects while delegating grunt work to junior staff. She consistently prioritized anything Ethan Blake was involved with, regardless of strategic importance. Ethan Blake's record was worse. His sales numbers were mediocre, but he'd cultivated relationships with key decision-makers through charm and social engineering. Multiple employees reported feeling uncomfortable with his aggressive networking style. 2 female employees had filed complaints about inappropriate comments that HR had swept under the rug during the pre-acquisition chaos. Daniel compiled everything into a comprehensive report. Then he called Margaret Brennan. "I've reviewed DataStream," he said. "We have significant leadership and cultural problems. I'm recommending we replace the interim CEO immediately with someone who'll enforce our ethical standards. I'm also recommending a full HR audit with particular attention to complaints that were dismissed previously. Do you have someone in mind for CEO? Janet Reynolds. She ran operations at our Seattle subsidiary for 5 years. She's brilliant, principled, and she doesn't tolerate favoritism or ethical violations." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "Janet's excellent, but she's tough. She'll clean house if she finds problems." "Good, that's what we need." "And if Lauren Foster and Ethan Blake end up being fired, then they end up being fired. If they violated our ethical standards, they face the same consequences as anyone else. I'm not going to protect them because of personal history. I'm not going to target them because of personal history. I'm going to let our standards and their actions determine their fate." Margaret's approval was audible. Robert would be proud. "Okay, let's move forward." Janet Reynolds accepted the CEO position immediately. She'd been hoping for a bigger leadership role and jumped at the chance. Daniel briefed her personally on the situation at DataStream, the ethical concerns, the documented complaints. "I want a clean company," he told her. "Not a punitive purge. Just accountability, fair treatment, merit-based advancement. The things Robert built this company on." Janet nodded. "I'll start with a full audit. Anyone who's violated policies faces consequences. Anyone who's doing good work gets supported. No exceptions based on politics or personal relationships." "Perfect." Janet started at DataStream the following Monday. Daniel heard about it secondhand through company communications. She introduced herself at an all-hands meeting, outlined her expectations, and announced a comprehensive HR audit to ensure the company met Chen Technologies' ethical standards. Lauren texted him that night. "Did you know about the new CEO at my company? This Janet woman is interviewing everyone and reviewing all our projects. It's incredibly disruptive." Daniel didn't respond. 2 days later, "Janet Reynolds is asking invasive questions about my relationship with Ethan. This feels like a witch hunt. You don't have anything to do with this, do you?" Daniel blocked her number 2. The following weeks were revelatory. Janet's audit uncovered exactly what Daniel had suspected: systematic favoritism, dismissed complaints, and a toxic culture that rewarded personal relationships over performance. She interviewed dozens of employees, reviewed years of records, and built an airtight case for necessary changes. She called Daniel with updates. "It's worse than we thought. Lauren Foster has been using company resources for personal projects. Apparently, she's been planning her wedding on company time, using company software licenses for her personal event planning. Ethan Blake has multiple documented instances of inappropriate behavior toward female colleagues that were ignored because he brought in some big sales. What are you recommending?" "Termination for both, with documentation supporting the decisions. They violated multiple policies. But Daniel," Janet paused, "I know your history with them. I want to be absolutely certain you're comfortable with this. I don't want there to be any question that these are legitimate business decisions rather than personal retaliation." "Show me everything," Daniel said. She sent him the complete documentation, page after page of policy violations, witness statements, performance issues. It wasn't borderline, it was clear-cut. Lauren and Ethan had both behaved as though rules didn't apply to them, using their relationship and Ethan's sales success as shields against accountability. These are legitimate business decisions, Daniel told Janet. Proceed according to our normal termination procedures. Severance as required by their contracts. Professional references limited to dates of employment and job titles. No personal animosity, just enforcement of standards. Understood. Janet terminated them both on a Friday afternoon. Professional, documented, done by the book. They had 2 weeks severance and were escorted out immediately, as per company policy, for terminations involving ethical violations. Daniel heard about it through the company network. He felt nothing. No satisfaction, no relief. Just a quiet sense that justice had been served by systems rather than personal vendetta. Lauren called from a number he hadn't blocked. He answered on the 5th ring. "You did this." Her voice shook with fury. "You got me fired. You used your connections or your influence or whatever, and you got me fired." "I didn't get you fired, Lauren. Your own behavior got you fired, using company resources for personal projects, showing favoritism based on your relationship with Ethan. That's not my influence. That's your choices. This is revenge. For the divorce. For the divorce you announced publicly at my award ceremony? The divorce where you humiliated me in front of 300 people? That divorce." Daniel's voice was calm. "Lauren, I haven't done anything to you. I've been building my career and my life. You're facing consequences for your own professional conduct. That's not revenge. That's just reality. Ethan said you must have connections, that someone's protecting you." Ethan was fired for multiple documented instances of inappropriate workplace behavior. Did you know about those complaints? The women who reported feeling uncomfortable? Or did you just ignore that because he was your partner? Silence. "I'm not your enemy," Daniel continued. "I'm not spending my energy thinking about you at all. You made your choices. You have to live with them. I'm making mine." He hung up. His phone rang again immediately. Ethan this time. "You can't do this," Ethan snarled. "I know you're behind this. You pulled strings because you're bitter about Lauren." "This is pathetic. I didn't pull any strings. I don't work at your company. I don't know your CEO. I've been focused on my own work." "Bullshit. This is too convenient. We embarrass you and suddenly we're both fired?" "You were fired 6 weeks after embarrassing me, during which time an independent HR audit documented multiple policy violations by both of you. That's not convenience. That's consequences. I'm going to fight this. I'm going to sue. I'm going to..." "You're going to do what your severance contract allows you to do, which is very little. You violated workplace ethics policies. You created a hostile environment. You showed favoritism based on personal relationships. All of that is documented by witnesses who aren't me and weren't influenced by me. So sue if you want. But you'll lose, and you'll burn any remaining professional reputation you have in the process." Daniel hung up. Block that number too. He sat in his apartment, the one he still hadn't really made his own after Lauren left, and felt the weight of the past 6 weeks settle over him. His wife had publicly divorced him. His best friend had betrayed him. He'd inherited $500 million and become owner of a tech conglomerate. His betrayers had been fired not through his revenge, but through their own failures. And he felt empty, not satisfied, not triumphant, just empty. His phone buzzed. Patricia Morrison. "I heard about DataStream. Professionally handled. Robert would be proud." Another message from Margaret Brennan. "Janet says you stayed completely hands-off from the actual decisions. That's integrity, Daniel. That's leadership." Daniel stared at the messages. He'd done the right thing. He knew that intellectually, but the right thing didn't fill the hollow place where his marriage had been. It didn't erase the humiliation of that ballroom. It didn't restore the friendship he'd thought he had with Ethan. He pulled out Robert's letter, read it again. The money doesn't change who you are. It just amplifies it. Who was he? A man who'd been betrayed. A man who'd inherited wealth and power. A man who'd chosen professional ethics over personal revenge? But beyond that, he didn't know yet. The answer started forming 2 weeks later at a Chen Technologies charity event. The company hosted quarterly gatherings where they showcased innovations from their various subsidiaries and raised money for tech education programs. Daniel attended as the new owner, still getting used to his role. A young woman approached him during the reception. She looked nervous, maybe 24, dressed in professional clothes that had seen better days. "Mr. Foster, I'm Amanda Wu. I was an intern at DataStream last year. I just wanted to thank you." Daniel blinked. "Thank me? For whatever you did to get Janet Reynolds in there. She's cleaning up a mess that's been toxic for years. Ethan Blake," Amanda's voice dropped. "He made comments to me when I was an intern. Nothing I could report because I was afraid of retaliation. But he made me feel unsafe. When Janet started investigating, I finally felt like I could speak up. She actually listened. She believed me." "I'm sorry you went through that," Daniel said quietly. "You inherited the company, right? From Robert Chen?" "He spoke at my college graduation. He talked about building technology that serves people rather than exploiting them. It inspired me to work in tech. I wanted to be part of companies like that, but DataStream under the old leadership wasn't living up to those values. Now with Janet in charge, it feels like it could." After Amanda walked away, Margaret Brennan appeared at Daniel's elbow. "That's the fourth person tonight who's thanked you for changes at DataStream. The employees there are relieved. They've been dealing with that toxic culture for years." Daniel felt something shift in his chest. Not satisfaction exactly. Purpose, maybe. "Robert left me this company to continue his mission," he said slowly. "Building things that matter, creating workplaces that treat people well, using wealth as responsibility rather than power." "Exactly. I've been so focused on not being vindictive that I haven't thought about what I should be building instead." Margaret smiled. "Now you're thinking like an owner." Over the next month, Daniel threw himself into that question. What should he build? He met with leaders across all 17 subsidiary companies. He learned about their innovations, their challenges, their aspirations. He discovered that Robert had created a network of purpose-driven tech companies, all working towards similar goals. Better healthcare, more sustainable infrastructure, more ethical data practices. Daniel started thinking bigger. What if they coordinated more intentionally? What if they shared resources and innovations? What if they created an alternative model for how tech companies could operate? He pitched it to the board. "I want to create the Chen Technologies Innovation Collective. All our subsidiaries working together on projects that matter, sharing patents and research, collaborating instead of competing, showing the industry that there's a different way to build wealth, through contribution rather than extraction." The board loved it. They spent weeks developing the structure, the goals, the values. Daniel found himself energized in a way he hadn't been since before Lauren left. This was what he was meant to do, not punish his betrayers, build something meaningful. The initiative launched 3 months after the award ceremony. Press coverage was extensive. Tech Billionaire creates ethical innovation network. Robert Chen's legacy, a different kind of tech empire. Daniel did interviews explaining the vision, careful to credit Robert and the brilliant people who'd built these companies. In one interview, the reporter asked about the award ceremony incident. Daniel had been expecting the question. "That was a difficult night," he said honestly, "but it also clarified things for me. I realized I'd been measuring success in awards and recognition. Robert taught me to measure success in impact and contribution. I'm grateful for that lesson, even though it came painfully." "Do you have any contact with your ex-wife or former best friend?" "No, and that's fine. They're building their lives. I'm building mine. I wish them well, but we're not part of each other's stories anymore." The interview went viral, not because of the drama, but because of the grace. People responded to Daniel's refusal to be bitter, his focus on building rather than destroying. Lauren saw it. She sent an email from a new address he hadn't blocked. "Daniel, I saw your interview. I want you to know I'm sorry for how I handled things. The timing was cruel. I was angry and hurt, and I wanted you to feel what I'd been feeling for years, invisible and unimportant. But watching what you've built, seeing how you responded to everything, I realized I was wrong about you. You were never going nowhere. You were always going somewhere meaningful. I just couldn't see it because I was measuring worth in all the wrong ways. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm sorry." Lauren Daniel read it twice. He felt no anger, no satisfaction, just a distant sadness for the marriage they'd both failed at in different ways. He didn't respond. There was nothing to say. Lauren had apologized and he accepted that. But forgiveness didn't mean rebuilding connection. It meant letting go and moving forward. Ethan sent a message too, through a mutual industry contact. "Tell Daniel I'm sorry. I was jealous of him for years. His talent, his integrity, his relationship with Robert Chen. I convinced myself that taking Lauren was winning, but I lost the only real friend I ever had, and I deserve that. I hope he builds something incredible." Daniel appreciated the honesty. He sent back a simple message. "Thank you. I hope you build something meaningful too." And he meant it, not because he forgave everything, but because holding on to bitterness would poison what he was building. 6 months after the awards ceremony, Daniel stood in a different ballroom. This one was filled with students from underfunded schools who were receiving tech education scholarships from the Chen Foundation, a new nonprofit Daniel had established using part of his inheritance. 50 students, grades 6 through 12, all passionate about technology and hungry for opportunity. Daniel had spent the afternoon talking with them, answering questions, listening to their ideas. These kids reminded him of himself at their age, brilliant and curious but lacking resources. One student, a 13-year-old girl named Maya, asked him, "What's the most important thing about being successful in tech?" Daniel thought about the past 6 months, the betrayal, the inheritance, the choices he'd made about who to become. "The most important thing," he said slowly, "is knowing why you're building what you're building. Technology is just a tool. What matters is whether you use it to extract from people or contribute to them, to take or to give, to concentrate power or distribute opportunity. How do you decide which kind of person to be? You decide every day with every choice. When you get power, whether it's money or influence or just knowledge, you decide whether to use it selfishly or generously, whether to punish people who hurt you or build things that help people, whether to become bitter or better." Maya nodded seriously. "What did you choose?" Daniel smiled. "I'm still choosing, every day, but I'm trying to choose better." After the event, Patricia found him. "Robert would be so proud," she said quietly. "You've taken what he built and amplified it. Not just the business, but the values. I had a good teacher. You also had character he recognized and trusted. Don't minimize that." Daniel looked around the room at the students and their families, at the opportunities being created, at the impact of choosing contribution over revenge. "Lauren told me once that I was married to my work," he said. "She meant it as an insult, but she was right, just not the way she thought. I am married to this, to building things that matter, creating opportunities for people, using whatever resources I have to make a difference. That's not a flaw, that's purpose." Patricia smiled. "And it's a better marriage than you had before?" Daniel laughed. "Definitely more fulfilling." His phone buzzed. An email from the Technology Innovation Council, the organization that had given him the award that fateful night. They wanted him to speak at next year's ceremony about building ethical tech companies. Daniel accepted immediately. He'd stand on that stage again, but this time he'd speak about what really mattered. Not awards or recognition, impact and contribution. The difference between building wealth and building legacy. He'd been betrayed at his highest moment, but that betrayal had clarified who he was and who he wanted to become. Not bitter, not vengeful, just purposeful. And that was worth more than revenge could ever be. 1 year after the awards ceremony, Daniel stood in his office at Chen Technologies headquarters. The walls were covered with photos, students receiving scholarships, teams launching innovations, employees celebrating ethical company achievements. Margaret knocked and entered. "The data stream transition is complete. Janet's turned it into one of our strongest subsidiaries. Employee satisfaction is up 70%. Productivity is up 45%. Turns out when you treat people ethically and remove toxic influences, they thrive." Imagine that, Daniel said dryly. Also, you got an invitation. Margaret handed him an envelope. It's from Lauren. Daniel opened it. A wedding invitation. Lauren and Ethan were getting married. Finally, after their engagement had been delayed by their terminations and subsequent job searches. Are you going? Margaret asked. No. Daniel set the invitation aside. But I'll send a gift. Something thoughtful. A book about building healthy relationships or ethical business practices. He smiled slightly. I'm not being petty. I genuinely hope they figure out how to build something good together. You've grown a lot this year. I've had a lot of practice choosing who I want to be. After Margaret left, Daniel pulled out Robert's letter one more time. He'd read it hundreds of times now, but it still grounded him. Use this wealth well. Build something meaningful. Help people the way you've always helped people. And remember, the money doesn't change who you are. It just amplifies it. Daniel had been amplified, not into bitterness or revenge, but into purpose and contribution. The betrayal had hurt. The public humiliation had been excruciating. But those things had forced him to choose. Would he let pain make him cruel or let it clarify his values? He'd chosen clarity, grace over revenge, building over destroying, purpose over bitterness. And in choosing that, he'd built something Lauren and Ethan could never take from him. A life that mattered beyond personal victories or public recognition. A legacy that would outlast any individual betrayal. He looked at the invitation again. Thought about that ballroom, that moment when his world had shattered publicly. That night had been his lowest point, but it had also been his liberation. Liberation from a marriage that wasn't working, from a friendship that was hollow, from measuring his worth by other people's approval. Now he measured his worth by his impact, by the students he helped, by the ethical companies he built, by the opportunities he created, by the person he chose to be when he had the power to be anything. Daniel Foster had been betrayed, humiliated, and abandoned at his moment of professional triumph. And he'd responded by becoming exactly who his mentor always believed he could be. A man who used wealth as responsibility, who chose grace over revenge, who built legacy over victory. Lauren and Ethan had gotten married at their wedding, but Daniel had gotten something better, purpose, and that was worth more than any revenge could ever be.